Admiral Ross tries his first glass of Romulan ale. Garrick was a gardener on Romulus. And Julian is a man who loves secrets, while Sloane is a man of secrets. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today, we're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 16. Checks notes for pronunciation guide. Enter Arma Enim Sealant Legis. Thank you to Eve England for providing that. This was written by the legendary Ronald D. Moore, directed by our good pal, also a legend in his own right, David Livingston. This was March 3rd, 1999, 3399. How are you today, Cirroc Lofton?
Excellent. Great episode.
That's been my biggest stress for the last 3 or 4 weeks, is knowing that this episode is coming up and I have no idea how to pronounce all that Latin. But luckily, our good pal and associate producer, Eve England, sent in a couple nights ago a pronunciation guide for it.
I mean, it's easy. It's Enter Arma Shimmerman's
Legolas. Perfect. Enter Sandman, Shimmerman, Legolas. We got it.
Yeah. But, they refer to it in the episode, which is great because they didn't. Yep. Sometimes they use these titles and they don't actually give you the title in the episode. But this one, they refer to it and then kind of tell you where the quote's coming from. I forgot. It was like
it was Cicero.
Cicero, that's right.
Yeah. Merchant of Venice, was it? No, I think that's
in time of war, the law falls silent.
Exactly. So I think basically it's like all is fair in love and war, but specifically in war, basically, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting concepts that this episode really deals with pretty head on, which is why it's so interesting because one of the things that Deep Space Nine does a good job of is questioning what measures have to be taken in order to basically secure victory for the Federation or for, protecting the most amount of life or preserving this kind of, democratic type of free society that the Federation believes in. So, we saw that with Sisko and then Garrick in that episode where he really does some kind of,
in the pale moonlight. Woo!
Yeah, you can't ever forget that episode because it does deal with similar subject matter, which is, to what extent do you, bend rules, question morality? Basically, at what point are you becoming the thing that you're trying to, oppose? Right. And that's really one of the things that's actually the walking the fine line of those kinds of decisions and making, military decisions and having to, people's lives in your hand. And what do you do to preserve it?
Yeah, that's true. It seems as though when you were talking about that just now, it made me think that in the Next Generation, Captain Picard was very much the guy that would say that we cannot change what makes us human. Otherwise, we're no better than them. Over and over, that was always kind of the theme, right? Deep Space Nine goes a little darker and says, well, the end justifies the means, right? And Sloane even says, like, look, I'll spare you the end justifies the means speech, and you spare me the we must do what's right speech. And I was like, that's so good, because that's usually an entire scene in most episodes of shows like this.
That's great writing to me, too. When I heard that, I wrote that line in my notes as well. And that's just Ron Moore taking the thing that, he squeezes it down and condenses it to just that line. So it's like, look, I'm not going to go through the whole, this is who's right, who's wrong, because we're not playing that game right now. We're playing a game where you don't have any options because I've manipulated the circumstances or events so that you only have one choice, which is to cooperate with me and do what needs to be done. So that's kind of the other aspect of knowing a bigger agenda and having more information about things, right? Because I really love that about this episode. You see that Sloan had other people in the room, right? It wasn't just him. It looks like he's just there for Bashir, and Bashir is his guy, and it's all about Bashir. But it's also, he's got a guy over there, he's got a guy over there. He's got several strings moving around that Bashir has no idea are moving around.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was one of the beauties.
If he's even in charge of this. We don't even know the power structure. That's why there's so many twists and turns in this episode, and it kind of asks more questions than it answers. And I think that's why the fans like this one. I mean, first of all, because it's the second episode that introduces Section 31, and it kind of opens up. It's kind of like the Tal Shiar, or with the Romulans, but the Tal Shiar is kind of like their spy agency, but they kind of work hand in hand with the Romulan Star Empire government. Same thing with the Cardassians and the Obsidian Order. That's their spy agency, and they kind of work hand in hand. But the Federation doesn't want to admit. They want to act like their hands are clean, and they're like, no, we don't work with Section 31. We fight them. But then it turns out that some of the officers, like Bashir, might fight Section 31, but the Federation itself does not. Behind closed doors, they're like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Keep up the good work, guys,
Yeah. And, one of the things that I kind of did a little research on as far as William Sadler's part into this role.
Yeah, let's get into this guy.
Yeah, because he's so amazing, and he's fantastic in this episode. But one of the things that he mentions, aside from the fact that, just this character was so interesting to him because it was an introduction of these kinds of ideas, and this covert organization really interests him because of what was happening in the headlines. And what he mentioned was Oliver North and the Iran-Contra scandal, which was what he says was in the headlines at the time. And that makes sense as far as the kind of origin of a story like Section 31.
Yeah.
Because, Oliver North, obviously, being involved with this whole drug smuggling, that's kind of this black operation that's happening where the government is, admitted to, in court at least, through the testimony of Oliver North, that there was this whole, drug distribution enterprise happening, courtesy of the U.S. military, right? And it was one of those things where everybody was looking the other way. And
see, I didn't know too much about that stuff. That's really interesting. So basically, the U.S. military was aware of it, but looking the other way because what?
They were doing more than just aware of it. They were transporting it on planes.
Wait a minute. Corruption within the U.S. government? I don't buy it. Boy, this sounds like propaganda to me.
But this was the drug operation, and that it was what Sadler was referring to was the fact that Ronald Reagan was president, and he had this image of this very, clean kind of, moral person who was able to talk to the people and convince them about, morality, talking about, tearing down communism and the Berlin Wall and all of these kinds of things, where it was like about righteousness and good things happening in the world. And while at the same time he stands for that, behind closed doors were these covert operations to run drugs and weapons and all of this other stuff that was happening. So that was kind of the headline that startled the nation, right? So when Oliver North was testifying, these kinds of facts surfaced, and it startled the nation because they were realized, wait a minute, the government that we thought was out here for benevolence and doing the most good in the world is actually involved in these other aspects of kind of not good activities. And so it was a wake-up call about the kind of activities that could go on, that are not on the books, that are not, even probably known about by certain members of the government itself, right? It's so black operations that some people may not even know about it.
Well, that's why in Star Trek Discovery, they have the badge that tells you I'm Section 31. Remember that?
Right. I'm undercover.
I'm in the secret group.
I'm hiding in plain sight.
Sounds like Ronald Reagan should have taken his wife's advice, right? His wife's the just say no, but he didn't. He said, just say, just, whatever. Just go do it.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that. That was, I think, the beginning. But obviously, we've had many other things that have happened since that kind of confirms people's suspicion that there's all kinds of activities that are nefarious going on at high levels, especially with the kinds of apparatus that are available to people now through the advent of the internet and all of these other mechanisms that could be used for espionage. So yeah,
well, that could be, but we all know the government would never spy on us, right? I mean, never. that's not something they would use the internet for. But anyway, you were saying
there's rights that are protected.
Yeah, I got rights. When I scrolled through 50 pages on Facebook and just said I agree, I'm sure I wasn't signing away my rights there without reading.
No, there was no fine print. But yeah, so that's what they deal with in this episode, which I love. I think it's pretty. It's interesting because Starfleet does have this, patina of just, goodness and benevolence, and that's one of the things that appeals to people about it is this force for good, right? That's out in the universe for exploration and first contact and development and sharing the technologies and wealth of abundance of the things that we've learned over the courses of our civilizations, right? And what the greatness that we've accumulated through technologies and alliances. But at the same time, when you see episodes like this, it reminds you that, there are certain measures and steps that are taken in order to protect that are outside of the parameters of these same ideals that it's trying to live up to.
Yeah, well, first of all, Cirroc, there's nothing that I and the fans love better than when you drop some historical knowledge on us. Usually it's more like super distant history or biblical stuff, but even just 80s, I'm like, tell me more. All I remember from the 80s is like Run TMC, I don't know, and music, and 49ers Super Bowls. But that's really cool. That's really good stuff. And it's true, like so many of these good, and of course, Ronald D. Moore is the perfect guy to write this stuff, right? So many good stories, throughout the ages have come from like the secret societies or the spy agencies or whatever. And so Star Trek is just ripe for this. Of course, we want there to be a secret agency, a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing that kind of works in the gray areas of Starfleet and the betterment of the Federation. It's ripe for that because Starfleet and the Federation are supposed to be like pristine, like they're supposed to be the clean, benevolent, we do what's right, and that's why we win. But yeah, sometimes, I don't want to say you got to cheat, but like sometimes even the most pristine of federations or companies or countries or galactic planets or whatever it is, in order for them to stay on top, they're going to have to fudge on the rules. And some of them, like the Cardassians and Romulans, are like, yeah, whatever. We're not even worried about that. And others, like the Klingons, are like, we will never, we have honor, and then the Federation is kind of like, well, we'll try not to, but
we just won't admit it.
Yeah, it's like, hey, what do you want us to do? Die? No, we got to do something. So it's really cool because I do think that Star Trek and the Federation is like, a prime candidate for stories like this. And I think that's why it catches our attention so much, is because it almost feels like this should have been introduced a long time ago. It's perfect for it, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is that Ron Moore takes it and he tells us in the dialogue that this is not a new concept. That's why he brings it back to Caesar and Rome, and he talks about this quote, this Latin quote about it in times of war. So the idea is old. It's an ancient idea that, hey, sometimes when it's wartime, the rules don't apply anymore. There's no more rules. We're going to have to kind of bend rules around here in order to get our goals accomplished. And that's the brilliance of Ronald Moore in this particular episode, because he's taking this old concept, taking current headlines, which is the whole Iran-Contra deal, and mixing it all together in this future setting, which is the beauty of Star Trek. You get to place concepts of today's headlines and things that we battle with as societies, and place it into a different context, into the future, which lets you perceive it and look at it from kind of a different lens, and it's not so close to you. And when you look at it this lens, I thought William Sadler had amazing performances in this episode. Totally. Specifically, the one in context to our discussion now is the one at the end when he's sitting there and he's like, "Hey, you're a good guy, Bashir. We need good people like you. We're protecting you."
He said Section 31 exists because of people like you, because people like you need to be protected, or something like that.
Yeah,
which is great.
It's great.
Yeah, William Sadler, obviously he plays Death on Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. That's who I see when I'm watching this. But he's got a laundry list, on IMDb that just goes forever. And so many great credits, including one by the aforementioned Eve England. She'll be mentioning during our free-for-all, so everybody stay tuned for that one. She sent in a pretty interesting thing. But when you were talking about like how the rules kind of go out the door in war, I was thinking like, so the Ferengi have the rules of acquisition, right? Garrick, we coined the phrase, he's got the rules of obfuscation, which is great for him. So what are the rules of war? Is that the rules of eradication, or what are we going to say? Because Sisko certainly has his own rules of eradication. Garrick certainly does. William Sadler does. Admiral Ross clearly does, where they're kind of, they all kind of have their own little mottos that they go by, which is always do what's right, except when you can't, then do what you got to do.
But then, everybody had that a kind of intent almost to some degree in this episode, with the exception of Bashir, who was kind of being used as a pawn throughout the episode. But so he was the least aware of what was happening and how he was being used.
It seemed like they were all being pawns out there. It was like a pawn cocktail.
I'm not touching that one, but the way that, like, when you find out that all the characters kind of are in some higher level of like, actually, as I watched this episode, I replayed it in my head, the scene with Sisko, and I was thinking, does Sisko also know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like did Sisko also know that Bashir was going to be used in this kind of a way? Because once Admiral Ross I was aware that he knew. Then I was thinking, well, did he brief Sisko in on it? Because Sisko was acting like, hey, we have to figure out what this Section 31 guy is up to because he's not supposed to be around.
But that's what Admiral Ross was saying too. So you're right. But they never actually gave us the answer to that question.
Right. Was Sisko played by Admiral Ross, or was he in on it and playing Bashir? That would be one of the
I think we're supposed to assume that Sisko doesn't know, because we like to look at Sisko as space dad, like Sisko would never go along with that. Well, the one time he did with Garrick Pale Moonlight, whatever. but he would never openly lie to Julian Bashir.
By the way, wasn't that a Romulan senator that Sisko did in that episode?
Yeah, what was his name? Senator... I can't remember. This one in today's episode was Senator Kretak. Do you remember Senator Kretak? She was in a couple of episodes, a dozen episodes ago.
I love the Romulan senators. Actually, when I saw this senator that they had, I thought how the consistency of how these Romulan senators are played, even forward onto Saru and his interest in Discovery, the woman that plays that Romulan senator.
Interesting, yeah. I think she's Vulcan. But
is she
whatever,
Vulcan?
Same thing.
They're very similar, but to me, the aura is very similar to. It's very consistent when you watch how this woman played the Romulan senator. So I just really liked just the whole concept of like, was Sisko in on it or was he not? And that was one of the things that kind of stood out to me a little bit. The other thing that stood out to me was the Section 31 outfit. That the whole black, there was that black leather kind of outfit that he was wearing. I was thinking,
Black
wow,
Ops.
This is the beginning of that style, because we obviously saw Section 31 in other iterations now in the new shows, and they've stayed true to that kind of black, dark leather, outfits for their operation, which is kind of cool because you see the beginnings of it here in this episode, which means Bob Blackman creates a style that and a organization that eventually becomes something that's spun off into other ways.
That reminds me, everybody at home, what's the punk band that sings Black Leather back in the day? Was it The Damned? It's a great song, Black Leather. Check it out. I think it's The Damned, but who knows anymore. So we're gonna hit a break, actually covered by Guns N' Roses right here. That's probably why I know it. Yeah, that's all I know from the 80s is Guns N' Roses and sports stuff. And that was just the end. Okay, so we got to hit our break really quickly, but I do want to talk a bit more about Kretak and Koval, this guy, the Romulan guy, the tall guy, and all kinds of other fun stuff. We will be right back with all that good stuff on the Seventh Rule. Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and we just played a little bit of Guns N' Roses cover of Black Leather from the album The Spaghetti Incident. We're mentioning this because they're one of our sponsors, of course. They love our show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here are the trivioids very quickly. The Davidices and the Generex have been waiting almost 3 weeks while more than a dozen Klingon ships have been given first priority. Odo doesn't want too many Romulans and Klingons on the promenade at the same time. Garrick was gardener on Romulus. Julian is a man who loves secrets, while Sloane is a man of secrets. Admiral Ross tries his first glass of Romulan ale, and people like Julian Bashir are the reason Section 31 exists. There are a lot of typos in my trivioids. Man, that makes it hard to read.
Hey, I got a little flashback for the Romulan senator from In the Pale Moonlight. It's Senator Vreenak.
Vreenak. Excellent. Yes, thank you very much. And Kretak, is this lady. It's played by Adrienne Barbeau, certainly a French actress with the way Adrienne is spelled and the last name Barbeau. And she was in a couple Deep Space Nine episodes at the beginning of the Dominion War, like at the beginning of like whatever it was, season 6, I think. Oh no, it's a different actress that played her, apparently.
Yeah, that looked new. That looked like the first time I saw that senator.
Okay, everybody at home, help me out. Who was the actress and who was the Romulan senator character? It was like an admiral that was in a few episodes. I feel like it's the same character, but it was played by a different actress, maybe, or something. Anyway, clear that up for us, guys, because I'm very confused. And you know who I'm talking about. There was a female Romulan senator that was in like 2 or 3 episodes. And remember, she called Kira's bluff. Like she and Kira were kind of like face to face. And I don't remember everything. But anyway, I thought that's who that was. But no, you're right. It's a new one. Anyway.
Yeah. It's a new one. There were so many good moments in this one. I did like the fact that Garrick was featured in it and he had that cameo in the beginning. And then as soon as I see him, I'm like, oh, this is a Section 31 episode. As soon as I saw Garrick.
Really?
As soon as Garrick said, oh, doctor, it's a beautiful opportunity to gather intelligence. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is going to go Section 31. As soon as he said that, then he started calling him the eternal optimist or whatever. But as soon as he said gather intelligence, I'm like, oh, this is a Section 31 episode. It's going to go there. And I'm glad that Garrick is the one that's kind of is dropping the hint that that's the direction they're going.
Yeah, it's also funny that Garrick says when he was spying on the Romulans, he was a gardener. And that makes us think, he's a tailor here. Is he just spying on the Federation? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
I mean, we already kind of know the answer to that, but what it does is it creates that consistency where Garrick takes on these menial jobs, in different places and pretends to I'm just a simple gardener. What do I know? I'm just a simple tailor. He's going to be, I'm just a simple grocery store clerk, when he's on the Dominion. He's like, I'm just doing paper or plastic. I don't know what.
I don't know anything. That reminds me of a line that I think was in a movie, but he says, I thought it was Al Pacino, but he says, I always tell the truth, even when I lie. So, yeah, that's Garrick for me. But the other person who did a fantastic job in this episode was this Koval character.
Yes. Yeah, played by John Fleck, who has had several other roles. Something I didn't know. He was in 3 episodes of The Orville, plays the Krill ambassador. But also in Star Trek, he's in 7 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise. He plays Silic. So that's cool. Stay tuned for that, everybody. And he was also in Star Trek Voyager, 1 episode. He played Abaddon. And in Deep Space Nine, he plays 3 different characters in 3 different episodes. In Homecoming, he was the Cardassian overseer. In The Search Part 1, he played Ornithar. I don't remember who that is. And in this one, of course, he plays Koval. So this dude is everywhere. I love the way Star Trek reuses character actors.
And if you don't know, you won't recognize the guy.
I have no idea until you look him up.
Yeah. But he was good in this episode. I don't remember his performances in the last other episodes, but this particular one, I thought he was great. There was a moment when he comes up to Bashir and he's basically saying, yeah, I'm not interested in the vaccine. I'm interested in the virus. And when he says it like that, it was cold.
Yeah, he's not even trying to act like he's just, I'm just curious. He's like, no, I'm just trying to know how to introduce it into a population. I'm just trying to look for biogenic warfare. I don't need to know the vaccine, bro. Put it in your magazine or whatever you doctors do.
Yeah, I was like, dude, this guy's cold blooded. And the other time that the other moment that I thought he was excellent is when he walks in. He's like, no, we go somewhere and sit somewhere else, go somewhere comfortable. And then he walks in. You see that room with the chair, and he's like, you're like, oh shit, it's going down. He
says, you will sit. I can assure you, you will sit in that chair one way or the other.
Yeah,
basically saying we can do it the easy way.
Yeah.
Or we can do it the hard way.
Yeah. When he does that, it was pretty menacing.
And he's tall as hell too, by the way. Look how tall he is.
I just liked him in this scene. I thought he was good for the purpose. He did have that kind of presence about him where you're just like, I do not want to be left in his custody. Gosh, please don't. I hate if my life's in his hands. Oh God.
You got to see Chain of Command 1 and 2. That's a dude you don't want to be in the custody of. But that's Next Generation. Sorry, I keep bringing up Next Generation. We're talking about. You're like, there's only like 10 or 11 episodes left. I don't remember seeing this.
Is that coming up? Admiral Ross also did a great job in this episode because I wasn't, he kind of lays out the case, for why he feels like whatever needed to be done. And I liked his performance as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially because Admiral Ross, I mean, we like him, likable guy. I think it's Barry Jenner plays him. And he kind of plays a little bit of the patsy role. You know what I mean? Like he's Sisko's boss, but usually Sisko tells him what's up. You know what I mean? Like and that's no real knock on him, but he has been pushed around a little bit by like that Romulan admiral I was thinking of earlier. And Sisko's shown him up a couple. I mean, basically he plays like the nice guy, but he's certainly not. He's basically not like the alpha or the brilliant strategist or whatever, And in this episode, suddenly it's like, oh, he knows a little bit more than we gave him credit for. At least in my estimation, it was a little bit of a surprise that good old Admiral Ross, who's never even had Romulan ale before, that little stinker, he's just like pushing papers and, and leaving at 5 p.m. every day, but he actually a little bit more.
He knows some things, which is like silly for anybody to think you make Admiral and you don't have your finger on the pulse of a lot of different things. You'd have to be able to, do that kind of high level multitasking. But no, when Sadler came in, there was a moment there that I really loved. First of all, I like the fact that he's introduced in this episode just like in Bashir's quarters.
Yeah.
Like he's just, no explanation. I'm sitting here watching you sleep. And that's the level of creepiness that already introduces his character. It's like, I can get in and out undetected. That's one thing. And then he does a thing, like a very charming introduction when he talks to Bashir, which I love the way Ron Moore wrote it. But he goes into him and he says, Bashir's like, I could scream. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. Screaming just seems so undignified for you.
Yeah.
And then Sadler does a great touch on his performance. He's, the way he delivered the line as an actor. He said, but don't let me stop you. And the way he said it, he really switched it up. If at first it was like, but then he added that little bit of comedy in there, which I love because it was like, it was a small little bit of comedic, and he plays this character with a sense of like he's laughing at something there in his head, right? Like there's a joke somewhere in his head that he's laughing at that you're not in on.
That's very good. Like yeah. And that's part of that, again, when he played on Bill and Ted, he clearly can do comedy. So this is an actor that can go as serious or as silly as you want. He's very multifaceted. And you're right. It's like he's delivering these lines as if he gets the punchline, but he's not sharing it with you because you wouldn't get it anyway. Exactly. You know, right? He's just he's like, oh man, this is funny, but I'm not gonna share it with you. I'm just gonna
I'm not gonna tell you why. Yeah.
That's very good. I love that.
Yeah, it's very coy. It's and it to me, that is almost the embodiment of Section 31. It's like, we know more than you do.
It's an inside joke.
It's
Section 31, joke. The inside joke, and you're on the outside.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's pretty much the whole thing in one thing. He comes in and he says, I'm from the Department of Cartography. I haven't heard or see anybody cosplay as a cartographist at the conventions, but I'd like to know about that. I'd like to know more about the Department of Cartography at Starfleet Academy.
I mean, I guess that would be a blue shirt, right? That's science.
So you're mapping out the space, right? I mean, it's got to be some. What are you writing code? You got to be doing something.
I will say this, not to keep mentioning other Star Trek series, but I think 7 of 9 on Voyager ends up being kind of a stellar cartographer, because she hangs out in the astrometrics lab, and astrometrics means, measurement of stars, which is basically cartography. So I don't remember if they officially made her a stellar cartographer or what, but that's the best I got. When you mentioned stellar cartography, that's all. I could barely pronounce it. That's all I got with that. But no, I don't think anybody's going out cosplaying and be like, what do you think? And they're like, I don't know, what is it? Stellar cartographer, obviously, Lieutenant Junior grade.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen the Asmetrics, but I'm sure it all pans out. I do. I wrote down counterintelligence, which is another thing that I felt like it was like investigate Section 31, like, find out what they're up to, and which was obviously a ploy, right? But it was like, Starfleet is investigating Section 30. Like, really?
You're right. That is so rude to Bashir. They're like, there's some secret spy. Can you go find out what's going on with them and report back to us what you find? This is a very important mission, Julian.
Yeah.
Can you just, you with your 2 pips, right? Only 2 pips.
Yeah.
You go and do this very important mission and report back.
Yes.
They're like being so condescending with it.
Tell us what they're spying about.
He's like, my word, I think there's Section 31. And they're like, blimey. Oh, boy. You better find out everything you can and let us know. This is very important, Lieutenant.
Yes. The other thing that I thought was interesting, and this was it was kind of a throwaway line, but it just opened up a sense of like, my imagination kind of running with it. But the line was, Bashir says, this war isn't even over, and you're already planning the next one, or what's right. And I was thinking, this level of war gaming and strategizing has always existed, right? It's always like, okay, well, who's the number 2 there, and who's this, and who would be advanced to power if we take out Saddam Hussein, who's going to be next in line, and this and that, and who's going to be the third in Al Qaeda, and all this. And so they're always doing this kind of strategizing and game planning. Okay, if we if we take Putin out, who's going to be the guy that steps up, and then is he going to be worse than him, right? And there's always this kind of game planning that goes on. And the thing that I think is interesting is that kind of game planning has actually been reduced to algorithms and artificial intelligence now. And so that they do these kinds of things through quantum computers as opposed to people sitting in a room and talking about it, right?
That's like 538. What's right? Is it 538? The website that has they figure out all presidential polling and sports data, and they go, 71% chance that LeBron James is going to win another title sometime in the next 2 years. And it's like they got all these Al Gore rhythms, and like they're like super statisticians. And of course, if some rando website can do it, 538, is that what it is? I think it's 538, right?
Well, I never heard of this website, but I have heard of AIs like IBM Watson, for example, that
it's 538
crunches all this data and basically comes up with predictability or potential outcomes for different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do that now even when you're watching sports games. They're like, oh, the chances of hitting this field goal, they or the catch, or making that catch is a window of 8%.
I love that stuff.
Me too.
I cannot. That to me is, not to get off too much off subject, but that to me is the greatest thing that advanced technology has improved is in sports. When you're watching a football game and they're telling you 71.8% chance this, or when you're just checking ESPN for live updates on a basketball game and they're like, at this point, it's exactly 53.7% chance that the Suns will win. And then the other team hits a 3-pointer and then another 3-pointer. And they're like, now it's 49.1% chance that the Bucks will win. And I'm like, this is what technological advancements of humankind were made for. It's for us that like sports. Anyway. And then they have like the red lines and the yellow lines in football. But I love it.
So that's sports. But, now we're talking war, and it's like, oh, should this particular unit advance here at this juncture, or should it do it over here?
They have the best technology for that.
Yeah. So they're doing that in real time when they're moving tanks and planes and bombers all around the planet. And it's crazy to me to watch that kind of the root of that idea unfolding in this episode, when you see Sadler and Bashir in that frame behind you, in that particular scene where they're going through the different members of the Romulan cabinet and saying, okay, this guy is this, and what is his, what are his tendencies, what are his things that he's like.
That was so
right
good.
And you've heard these kinds of things. I remember when the world was looking for bin Laden, and he was the number one, most wanted person. But they were releasing articles and stuff, reports saying that he had a medical condition and that he needed to, that he saw a doctor in Switzerland 4 years ago. It was like the level of, intelligence about the guy's well-being. Like, he's got cataracts and he's got glaucoma in his left eye.
Like, we heard he might have moved to a different cave in Pakistan to get a root canal, but we don't know if he's already done it or if he's back. Right? They used to do stuff like that.
Yes, and like medical stuff and everything. Like they would say stuff like, well, he hurt his ankle, so he's walking with a cane, and like
he might look like this now with the Grand Negus cane.
Exactly. So just that level of insight into somebody's life when you're really putting the microscope on them is the same level of insight that we saw kind of exchanged between these, between Sloan and Bashir, when they're talking about, oh, he has these kinds of tendencies, or he has Tuvin syndrome. And are you able to identify Tuvin syndrome by just looking at somebody and what are the mechanics to exactly infect them and kill them? And, these kinds of conversations, those were interesting kind of war game strategies that were happening as far as intelligence gathering. And that's when you can only imagine the kind of briefings that certain people receive when they're like, he's got blue eye, he's got diabetes, and he had diarrhea last night because he had too many chorizos in his burrito or something.
Sluggo cola and prune juice. Hey, but I do want to mention, by the way, in that scene, there was something that caught my attention in a negative way, but then I realized it was a good thing, was the way our buddy Sid plays Julian Bashir. Dude pulls out Tuvin syndrome or whatever it was, And Bashir answers immediately. Like he says, is there any way to do this or do that? Most normal people, even if they know the answer, if you're bringing up something they haven't thought about in years, and you mention this thing and they go, oh yeah, that's that thing. And they say, is there any way to do early onset? They would stop and think, and they'd be like, yeah, I think there's this, but he answers like a computer right away. And my first thought was, that's not realistic. However, we remember he's been genetically altered, genetically engineered. So that is the perfect way to play, because now he no longer has to, Bashir, that is, no longer has to pretend like he's normal, and he doesn't have to hide his computer brain, and he can just answer the questions. And they even addressed it when he said like a photographic memory or total recall was what it was. He says total recall is great. And so that's what makes him such a great candidate to be a part of Section 31, is he's basically a human with a robot brain. And so I caught myself doing a double switch where I was like, oh man, he should play it differently. But then I was like, no, that's perfect. This dude remembers everything he's ever learned and can pull it up in an instant. And a big kudos again to our buddy Alexander Siddig for always being so amazing.
Yeah, it's funny, as I was watching that scene, and he was fantastic in this episode. One of Sid's best episodes, in my opinion. I love the way he didn't overdo it in this episode. I thought he was perfect.
Yes.
The tones and the strokes that he hit were just right on point. But no, what you mentioned about kind of knowing off the top Tuvin syndrome and also knowing how to activate it. So that triggered in my mind when I saw, I think Sloan originally asked him, he said, so what would be a way to trigger it? And he did not reveal to Sloan the way to trigger it, even though he knew it. He did later on to Admiral Ross when he said, oh, Admiral, this is all he has to do is do this, this, and this, and have him stand next to this low-level radiation and all that, whatever. But when he was saying it to Admiral Ross, I was thinking, why are you telling these idiots? They don't know how to do it. Yeah. And now you're just giving it away. Like I was thinking, well, who knows that Section 31 does. At that point, Admiral Ross had revealed that he was on the same team. So I was thinking, even by saying it to Admiral Ross, there could be a listening device in the room or something. You're now telling them how to do it if they didn't already know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So everybody at home, we've got much more to talk about, but we've got to jump over to the free-for-all in just a second. We've got non-appearance mention to discuss. We've got all kinds of fun games, sections, IMDb stuff. Here it comes. Before we go, very special thanks to Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, Tim Baum, a.k.a. Grandpa One, Bubbles, they like to call him, TJ, Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill, Victor Arucan, Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, John Mann, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Rex A. Wood, Anil O. Palat, Erika Stroem, Joe Balsarati, DQ, Mike Gu, Neal Akasaka, Justine Norton-Kertson, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, Radek Orshevsky, Henry Unger, live from Tokyo, and of course, who could forget Dr. Susan V. Gruner. Stick around. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
We've got a very special guest joining us. You know him as Sloan or Death from the Bill and Ted movies, or the Grim Reaper, of course. It is William Sadler joining us. Hello, William. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here, Ryan, Cirroc. It's nice to see you guys.
Mm-hmm. It's a pleasure. Loved your work all throughout your career. I wanted to make sure we get that on the air. And, you've played some iconic roles, but in relation to sci-fi and the Star Trek community, this particular role is the beginning of something which is really, expanded since you've played the role, this idea of Section 31. And, what a fantastic character and idea that, really borrows itself from reality, But I just, I want to make sure we start by saying how wonderful your performance is, how great you are in tons of movies that I've seen you in, Die Hard 2 and so on and so forth. But I really want to get into this particular character because I think it's so in depth. And what's, Star Trek does is take these issues and dissect them, specifically, issues that we go through in politics and religion and whatnot, and place them in that context. So when you're playing this character, having the opportunity to introduce this subject matter into Star Trek, what was that like for you? What did that mean for you when you were approaching this role?
Well, when I was first approached to play this character, he was kind of described to me as an Oliver North sort of figure, and neither of you are old enough to remember the first Bush administration.
We kind of are, though.
There was a character, a little bit. There was a character named Oliver North who, there were people. There was actually a conspiracy of these people to, maybe it was Reagan. I forget. It's way.
I think
it's way back.
Reagan.
But anyway,
Oliver.
Yeah. It was. While the president could stand there and say, we don't deal with terrorists and we don't sell arms and we don't, we're America. We don't do these kinds of things. Behind the scenes, there were people who were doing exactly that, who were trading, arms for prisoners and arming the rebels and, all of this sort of back channel stuff that, they felt was in, America's best interest, but we could never do it out loud. We could never come out as a country and do that because, and the Federation, it's one of the things that I found really the most fascinating and kind of intriguing about this character and the idea that there's a Section 31 at all, was that no one, Dr. Bashir, no one knew that they existed, that they'd been operating behind the scenes for centuries, maybe, helping them win wars, spreading, infesting planets with plagues, doing this committing atrocities in order to so that the Federation could keep its hands clean and pretend that it didn't do. We don't do that kind of thing. We won this war fair and square. And here comes this character saying, "You don't think you won that all by yourselves, do you? What do you think? That planet just happened to catch some plague that wiped them out?" So he was evil, just an evil bastard incarnate, but very competent, very smart, and believing that he was doing the right thing. Like whatever it takes to win, whatever it takes for the Federation to come out ahead in this, in this battle or this crisis. We're there to work behind the scenes and, assassinate people or do whatever needs to be done. And it just felt that it had never been approached, and it had never been done before on Star Trek. And I was fascinated by the idea that they, here comes this rock, this thing at the that shook the foundations of the Federation to the core.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
everything you thought was true, from Captain Kirk on down. Maybe it wasn't true. Maybe they didn't, Well, it was like, holy crap. And I love that. I love that about the character because and about the whole idea of a Section 31. I mean, I hate to think that they exist today, but I'm sure they exist today. Yeah. The CIA has a history of, exploding cigars for Castro and, all sorts, deposing duly elected leaders because they're not in our best interests and so on. So I was sort of glad to see it introduced, but I had no idea it was going to create something that would make waves going forward. In the show and in the universe, in the Star Trek universe.
Sounds like you know a lot about Star Trek, more so than just your stint on Deep Space Nine, because like you're mentioning, not only is your character the one that introduced Section 31. So we're introduced to this multifaceted, multidimensional character at the same time as we're introduced to this multifaceted, multidimensional organization. And now, I don't know if you know this, but it is, it has grown beyond Deep Space Nine and into other Star Trek series. But on top of that, they're making currently a series about Section 31. I don't know if it's going to be called Section 31, but it is literally about Section 31. And had you ever imagined when they first approached you with this, or even afterwards, when it was over, did you think, this thing could keep going? They could really expand more on this.
No, I had no idea. I did 3 episodes, and I had not. I mean, truth be told, I apologize to your viewers. I was not watching Deep Space Nine before they called me up and asked me to do this thing, and I sort of did some homework and caught up as quick as I could. Mm-hmm. But I'd been a fan of the Star Trek world from the time from the very first series, from the Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner stuff. I was already a fan. I loved the stuff, and the idea that I was being asked to be a part of the fabric of this thing. This cultural phenomenon that Star Trek is. I was flattered, and I said yes instantly, And then I found it. And then I read the very first time you see this character, he's sitting in a room watching Dr. Bashir sleep. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that is the creepiest thing I've ever done on film.
And you've done a lot of creepy things on film.
I've done a lot of creepy things on film, but I knew, but I knew when I read that stage direction, I thought, holy, this dude, before he even says a word, the audience is going, oh crap, so part of your work is done already, but just the way that he was introduced, he's out of nowhere comes this guy who's been watching you, without you knowing it.
Yeah.
And he's got this, he's got a plan. He's got a thing he wants. And he knows more about you than you do.
Yes.
And the whole thing was it just stunk of the CIA and the sort of things that I'd been reading, seeing in the news. And I thought, this is great. This is great stuff. The first day on the set, I said, what's his first name? Because in the script, I think it was Director Sloan. That's all they called him. And someone made a phone call to the writer's room, and about 20 minutes later came back down. Luther, his first name. His first name is Luther Sloan. And then I was good to go. Then I knew, okay.
Better than Lucifer. But I
No, I had no idea. But just to answer your question in a really long and winded way, I had no idea that this was going to grow and infest the world of Star Trek and become, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because it was a fascinating chink in the armor of we're all good, we're all good people, and we all do good stuff, and we're the Federation. We're the good guys, and God is on our side. And it was like this. He introduces this ink into the water, and it just began to spread, I guess.
Yeah, Star Trek has this ideal where it kind of represents benevolence and this idea of exploring the galaxy with this goodwill and trying to bring the values of Western philosophy to the rest of the universe, essentially. But then you're hit over the head with this grim reality that there are these forces at play that are not legal, that are not moral, but are also kind of necessary to preserve the thing. It's that balance. And Deep Space Nine, I believe, is the first to introduce this darker side of the Federation. Idea. Yes. Yeah. Yes. You said your father was in the military. I read about you saying that. What did that offer as far as kind of an insight into this character?
My dad was in World War II. He was in the Philippine Islands, fighting Japan, fighting the Japanese, and he was lovely, and he could be playful and sweet, and taught me to play the ukulele and then the guitar, and a very funny man. But he was also, there was a side of him that he would draw on. It was like, it would come out every once in a while, this like military, just square-jawed, dead-eye military guy, who'd been through 7 assault landings and had a ship shot out from underneath him by a kamikaze plane. And it was like, whenever that came out, you went, oh, man, it made an impression on me. And in Die Hard 2, I think I drew on a lot of his, I could hear his voice in some of that.
I'm seeing it right here.
This guy with some steel in his backbone.
That's where we see it.
Yeah, that's the no nonsense. Yeah. I'm not playing around.
Yeah. It was sort of that guy. But and I guess and I'm sure I got a lot of that from my dad, just being around someone who was kind of had that kind of backbone.
Mm-hmm.
And I also heard you talk about. I heard you talk about dialing a character up and down, basically. IQ wise, and one of the things that's so good about this character is that he seems to know so much more than everybody else. It appears like he's only dealing with Bashir, and it's only him and Bashir, but clearly he's got a lot of other chess pieces on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a thing that I've played with that as an actor my whole career. The guy that I played in The Shawshank Redemption, Haywood, you sort of dial him way down in the IQ world, so that he can only see what happens right in front of his nose. That's the only thing that's real is what's happening right there, and it makes him funny, that he doesn't get the bigger joke. But with someone like Sloan, he knows, he knows what's going on behind him. He knows what 3 moves ahead of what you're going to do, what the people in the next room are doing. It's like the difference is that he can see everything. It's really hard to trick him because he's that far ahead of you. I mean, he just can see more. He has more information at all times. And that's what that meant. I mean, it's interesting that you mention the dial because it's true. I use it. It's one of the things you have to decide when you play a character. It's like how bright is this guy?
Yeah.
And Sloan is a very cunning human.
Seems like you give so much thought into each one of these roles. Clearly, you don't just look at what's on the page and say, okay, I get this guy. It seems like you really dig deep into the psyche of the character, whether, the IQ, the thought process, how they were growing up. Was there anything, I mean, you clearly did your homework on the character himself, when you first were going to play him, like you wanted to really understand it and dig deep. Was there anything that a director, for example, told you on set on the day that helped something click, or did you pretty much just get all the preparation done ahead of time?
Oh, I think I got a lot of help from directors and fellow actors and the writers and what was in the script, because like I said, I wasn't really paying attention to DS9 before that. So I had there were a lot of things that I found myself talking about that I didn't really know. I had no idea what people were constantly filling me in saying, oh, that's the audience is going to know this. And right. Sloan would certainly know this, but Bill doesn't know.
Right.
Doesn't. and we need to get him up to speed.
Right. The Romulan, Telsiar,
whatever,
all of that stuff.
Whatever. Yeah. And to this day, I'm like, I'm embarrassingly, ignorant of those details. I did an interview with some guys. I forget. I'm not gonna mention their names, but I did one of like a radio thing about Deep Space Nine about this before, and they riddled me with questions about the Romulan code and the this and the that, and I'm like, I was just humiliated.
Like, dude, I'm an actor.
I was like over and over. I was like, buddy, come on. My agent said there's this job. Do you want it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have rent to pay. Yeah. And I love Star Trek. And
they're like, Mr. Sadler, you said you were the Department of Cartography. What was your ranking? And tell us more about.
Like, exactly. I was like, what kind of equipment would he have?
But I do want to say,
and it's fun too. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please.
No, it's just fun because the people that are into it, the people that love it and have, really done the deep dive.
They obsess over it.
Oh my God, they can speak, Kardashian or whatever. They don't.
No, they obsess over the way all of it fits together. Oh, do you remember that episode? That was a reminder.
Right.
They piece everything together. Yeah, it's very intricate. I'm starting to learn as I dive in myself, watching the show. But you were there for a long time. You must have absorbed more of this than I did. I was there 3 episodes and out. I thought I did. I thought I knew more than what I actually knew. As I watched the episodes, I realized there's a whole universe of stuff that I need to learn. But we talked with Ira Bear, the executive producer of this of Deep Space Nine, one of the people responsible for hiring you for the role. And what he said was that at the time, the thing that he was blown away about you as an actor was your performance in Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. Did you realize that was the reason why you were hired for this particular role? Did you know that?
Holy shit. No, I didn't. Wow.
He said he loved you in that. He said he loved you in that movie, and that you played the hero in the movie, and that you rarely get the chance to play the hero, and that was what he loved about your performance in it. And so that was really, if I'm not mistaken, the reason that they brought you in, because of that role.
God bless him. That's great to know. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
And Ira, if you're watching, in this 25 minutes we've been here, this is the first time Bill has been speechless. You notice, like when Cirroc said that, all he could say was "wow" for a second there. But that's really cool. How does that feel, right? That's got to be gratifying a bit, right?
Dude, I would feel, wow, that's really wonderful. That's, you do these things, and Cirroc, you must know this too, where every time you get a chance to do one of these things, it's sort of like you're getting up to bat. It's like you play for the Yankees and you get another at bat if you're lucky. And so if my performance, I remember doing the Demon Knight with Billy Zane and Jada Pinkett and CCH Pounder and, oh my God, Thomas Church. And this was like this wonderful gang. We did this movie for $1.98, but we did it. But everybody got there. I mean, everybody went for it. Nobody held back. Not at all. And Ernest Dickerson directed it, and we shot it in an abandoned airplane hangar in Sherman Oaks. When I say it's $1.98, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
But it was this really cool story, and you never walk. I don't walk through these things. None of these people that are in it for the long haul walk through. You take your shot. You really take your shot, and what happens is people like Iris see it. Hopefully.
Well, you just made Ira happy by mentioning the Yankees too. By the way, you definitely made him smile right back. So that works out well there.
You've managed, Bill, to do what very few actors are capable, which is to stay consistently working for decades now. And hats off to you for that success. I mean, working with Matthew Broderick and Denzel Washington and all of these people that you have worked alongside. It's just a testament to your ability. But I want to say, with this particular character, one of the things that Sloan essentially embodies, which is a thing that they carry on later on in the iterations of Section 31, is the wardrobe, this all black kind of dark, menacing look. And what was the process like getting that wardrobe together with Bob Blackman and the costume department?
It was a gorgeous black jacket and pants. It was it looked like leather. It wasn't leather.
Yes.
It looked there you go.
Yes.
It was but it was hot as hell. I mean it looked hot as hell. It wasn't that it was warm. But clothes make you feel. Clothes help an actor a lot. You have to know this. You put on the doublet and the sword and the boots and the whatever, and suddenly you don't move like, you don't slouch around like you're wearing t-shirts and jeans. but it was, yeah, it was a beautiful sort of Naugahyde, thick black, shiny black leather outfit. It was hot. It was great. Oh, and there was also, well, you probably know this. There was did they do the dance belt thing? Like
the dance belt, huh?
The underwear deal, where just to sort of smooth everything out.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that surprised me. And then I thought, and they said, no, all the men wear it because our outfits are like Ken dolls, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody at home, you're gonna have to Google dance belt. We're not going to.
I'm not going to we're not going in there, but it was a smoother outer.
Yeah, smoother outer. We do only have a couple minutes left, Bill, but my goodness, this has been so cool, and we really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about all this. But a couple quick things. Number one, for everybody just listening at home, Bill has so many cool old school signs in his background, like Coca-Cola signs and $1 and Chicken Shack signs and ice cream, like looks like from the 40s and 50s and 60s.
Oh my God.
So many great things. So if you're listening in only, watch the video so you can see it. It's really cool. But secondarily, Bill, you also are, you know, to piggyback on what Cirroc was saying, you're still working. You've got decades and decades under your dancer's belt, and you're still working right now. And you've got a new indie movie you just finished called A Stage of Twilight. Can you tell us about that very quickly?
Yeah, it's a very sweet little movie about directed by Sarah Schwab, written and directed by Sarah Schwab, and it stars Karen Allen and myself as an old couple who've been married for like 45 years or something, and he gets a bad diagnosis, and they have to
Section 31 calling. Like you're giving too much information.
Section 31 on the line.
There we go. I couldn't take that call. No, they're this great old couple and mother. Gonna call you back. Sorry, I'm on a Zoom meeting. Call.
And you know what? It's a cell phone.
I'll call you back. Thanks.
Got a cell phone ringtone as like an old school. I thought he was going to pick it up, and it was going to be one of those long, you know.
Central. It's a very sweet movie. He finds out that he's got like a month left to live, and he doesn't want to put her through all of that, and he wants to rent a trailer out in the woods and just go off by himself, and like a cat, you know, goes under the porch to die by itself. And she's having none of it. So they fight over this. And it has a really nice conclusion. It's a beautiful little movie, and it's for whatever reason, it just turned out to be some of the best work that I think I've ever done. I've never been asked to play somebody like that. And so I got to be that guy. I got to go there, which was terrific. And it's now going through the festival circuit. And I got, Karen and I shared the Best Actor Award at the Woods Hole. I got the Best Actor Award at Rhode Island Film Festival. So it's So it's being appreciated, or we're being appreciated anyway. Maybe more than the movie is, but you should watch for it. It'll be out on a streaming service, I would imagine, soon.
Please keep us updated if and when it comes out on some kind of streaming service where we can check it out. We'll definitely check it out and share it around. Bill, this has been really cool, and all we can hope is that you'll come back again and see us, because it feels like there's so much more to talk about.
Yes. Thank you so much, Bill.
Well, it's been really fun for me too. You guys are great at this. Yeah, I'll come back.
All right.
What are you doing tomorrow?
But he's gonna come back. Yeah, he's gonna come back while we're sleeping, and he's just gonna sit there like this. Like, are you ready?
He's sitting
hit record,
bed, watching you sleep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Of all the creepy entrances there ever were.
By the way, I love the way you delivered that line to Bashir when you tell him, screaming kind of is a little undignified for you, but don't let me stop you.
You go right ahead. Yeah.
I love the way you delivered that. I thought it was so creepy that I was like, he's basically tricking you into not screaming. It's such mental psychology. I love it.
Oh, you kind of give the writers credit for a lot of this stuff too. I mean, I go where they send me. If they hadn't written such a cool line, I'm sure.
But you play it very well. I mean, you don't show your cards at all when you're playing this character. The whole time I'm looking at you, I'm like, what does he know? Is he good? Is he bad? Who else is in on it?
He's trying to put a wall in front of his emotions.
I don't know if you're
bluffing, but we're trying to read it.
Yeah.
They get into his head, and he has to commit suicide to get them out of his head. Well, you'll explain it to me next time.
You know what? And the best, at the end of this episode, really quickly, I also love the line that you give to Bashir when you tell him, you're a really good guy, Bashir, and you're the reason why. You're the type of guy that we're protecting with what we do. It's people like you that we're protecting, and that's another mental gymnastics. It's just like,
yeah, he's almost like, wait, is that an insult?
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah. Am I supposed to cheer for him? Do I root for him now because he's doing that, or it's
what
kind of?
Well, that's the real wonderful ambiguity in Section 31. It's like, he's on the right side. It's
mostly
just he'll he can't tell anybody what he's doing because nobody would want to be doing that,
right?
But he's doing it for you.
Exactly. So,
we should thank
you. Don't think you won that war by yourself?
Yeah. Thank you so
Bill,
much, Bill, for talking about this episode and your character. Awesome job of this character and section, and being the J. Edgar Hoover of Section 31.
Yes, the godfather of Section 31. I mean, we have you to thank, in a lot of ways, for a new series that will be coming out soon. I mean, obviously the writers, producers, and all that, but you were that seed that started the curiosity. I mean, you got to know that if you didn't play the part well, if the writers hadn't written it well, it might have just died after 1 or 2 or 3 episodes and moved on. But you guys did it, and we're really happy for it, and it lives on forever. And I hope you're really proud of the work that you did. And by the way, we can't wait to see you again. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us and show off your really cool signs and tell us your stories.
My pleasure.
Thanks very much.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
And everybody at home, stick around. We will be right back with the free-for-all, of course, on the 7th Rule. Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule with Cirroc Lofton, with a cool hat, by the way.
Hello.
We have Radek Orszewski out in Poland. We've got Anil O Palat as well, with Deep Space Nine in the background. Also, Deep Space Nine in the background, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. We have Carrie Schwent with, it looks like maybe Florida and Cuba behind her. Goldu Scott Jensen is here. Dr. Mohamed Noor is here, calling in from work, looks like.
Yep.
Yes.
Tierney C. Diekman is doing a Jake Sisko impression with her shirt practically. Mai live from Tokyo is wearing a virtual TrekCon Radical shirt, and it's like 6 a.m. over there. Eve England out in Wales. It is, I don't know, 10:24 there. Grandpa One is not impressed, but he's got a cool background. He's just like folding his arms. And Erika Stroem is also here joining us from the UK as well. Let's have some fun. So much to talk about, so little time. let's get into it. First things first, did you guys get the NAM of the day? I only found one.
Yeah, I got it.
What do you got, Cirroc?
It was Goldemar.
Yes. Yes. Excellent.
I missed it.
Oh, I got Martok.
Did I miss Martok?
Yeah, because they were talking about when they were in that initial meeting at the start, and they were saying something about having to explain to Martok that his ships weren't going to be ready.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the only one I missed. The other one.
Warp, you just volunteered for that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay. Also, here come our big budget special effects.
By the way, Goldemar, his NAM. What did they say about him? Did he kill the woman by looking at her?
Yeah, there was something weird. It was about killing someone.
I could tell that he killed a woman by looking at him.
Yeah, Julian's enhanced friends.
Oh, yeah. They could tell that he had killed Zeal just by looking at him when he was doing the broadcast.
Oh, okay.
Did they say Zeal or did they say Ducat's daughter or anything like that? I didn't think so.
No,
right?
I think
he
like killed
the princess,
a woman.
I think.
Yeah,
they said the princess was killed or something like that.
Yeah, because then I wonder, is that a NAM for her or not? And since Homer's not here to shake his head, who knows? More like an insinuation. Scott says no, it's a no. Also, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Oh yeah, we didn't do that. This is a great episode. I'm gonna go with a 7.9. Almost
That's
an 8.
Exactly what I was gonna pick. Exactly what I was gonna pick.
Wow.
7.9.
Too bad you guys are both wrong. Anybody else have any guesses?
I think it's higher. 8.6.
I'm gonna go lower and say 7.2.
Whoa.
We'll say 8.5.
8.5.
The answer
yeah,
is,
I was gonna say 8 in the beginning, but it's like an 8er. It's gotta be.
Yeah, it's a 5 point.
No,
it's an 8.2. 8.2. You guys are all very close. Yeah. All right, here we go. First things first, Eve's got some fun things to drop on us. So let's hear it, Eve, England out in Wales.
I have, because I had all set to plan to talk about how amazing Section 31 is in terms of it being a sort of used as a mechanism to critique, the Federation and Starfleet's principles, all that kind of stuff. And then I was just rewatching it again earlier this evening, and James reminded me of the fact that we had Mr. William Sadler in Die Hard 2, also featuring our very own Colin Meaney as the BA pilot. So I was thinking, this is in my head now. This is very much one of those long lost O'Brien Must Suffer episodes where he clearly travels back in time to the 1990s to help John McClane with some, battle with a terrorist, but actually gets taken out by Section 31. So I would just love to see whether he gets back to the 24th century after that. So I just thought that was a
holosuite program or something.
Yeah, it is. And I'd totally forgotten that they were both in that. So I thought that was really funny. That was just a really cool bit of headcanon there, I think.
We have to change it to Colin Meaney Must Suffer. That's just his whole. Should we just change it? Colin Meaney Must Suffer. That's like all of his roles. That's his whole.
Columns meanies.
Yeah. It is, yeah, definitely. So it's another example. He just never catches a break.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just love this episode. And what I also really liked about this episode in terms of a trivia point, obviously they filmed part of the Bellerophon scenes on the Voyager sets. Actually, when you look at some of the shots of the external shots of the Voyager, you can actually see the Voyager. It's still they use exactly the same shot, so it's got the same registration and details on it. If you look really carefully, you can't really tell if you weren't. I only spotted that because I'd read somewhere that they did that. But I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. How it was like clearly an Intrepid class ship, and it looked very much like Voyager. But you're saying that they used some of the sets too. That's really cool.
Yeah, they did, because they said they were originally going to just do it on the Defiant, as they usually would. But they said they wanted to have something that was a bit more grand, something a bit different. And as they obviously had the Voyager sets available to them for a couple of days when they weren't using them. They just redressed them and put them on just to give a bit of a different look and feel to the whole thing, which I thought worked really well, actually. But that was really cool.
That's awesome. Radek Orszewski out in Poland. What part of Poland, by the way?
The city is called Wrocław. That's southwest.
Okay.
Like cool. 100 kilometers from German border.
How do you pronounce that city again?
Wrocław.
Cool.
Wrocław.
Yeah.
What do you think
you
of
just
this
mastered C, which is really hard for English speakers to read in Polish. Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe we're just misunderstood.
Yeah.
What do you think of this great episode?
Oh my, you called it great, and I just envy that there are people who are gonna watch it for the first time. I would call it this way. For me, this is like truly like in the Pale Moonlight class episode. Maybe I'm exaggerating. For me, it is like this. Yeah. So there's so many crazy twists in the plot. You are so sad for Admiral Ross to be sick, and I don't know. Like you could point so many twists like this. Amazing Sloane's role in the episode. All gray and bad Koval. Yeah, what else could you say? I love it. I was super happy to feel like forced to rewatch it before our meeting tonight.
Yeah. When had you last seen it before today?
I think two or 3 days ago. Yeah, and yeah.
So it's in the rotation.
Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Anil? You've done a lot of psyops and undercover stuff in the past, or I don't know if you can talk about that right now, but
I'll keep that quiet for now. Yeah, to me, this episode is all about the last scene. What Sloane says to Bashir, he says, "You need people like us to protect people like you," and I think it's a great line. I think when you watch the episode the first time, you go, nah, I think the Federation is doing pretty good. Maybe they don't need Section 31. There are some things that may come down the line that might make you question that dynamic. So it's setting something up very interesting and very in a really interesting way. So yeah, now I'm on the fence. I don't know. Does the Federation need Section 31 or do they not? Because they have a utopia, but they also have Section 31, which is it like a chicken and egg situation, or is one just like a sort of like a cancer that's sort of grown out of just having too much power? So and I like the gray area of this episode. It's really good.
Yeah, that's interesting. The utopia, but then is Section 31 protecting the utopia or bringing it down, right?
Yeah. So, and it's an opportunity to make Bashir look cool, which we don't always get. So, good episode.
Speaking of looking cool, Dr. Susan V. Gruner is here, always looking cool, but especially today. How much did you love this episode?
I like it, but in general, I don't like Section 31. So here's why. Let me explain it. I think it's redundant. For me, it would be more interesting if it was just the one guy who put himself in that position to be, the police of everything. They already have security. To me, it's redundant. So it's a redundant organization that I just don't get it. I don't get the point. So that's why I don't really care for the Section 31 shows.
Do you find it easier to swallow that the Romulans have the Tal Shiar and that the Cardassians have the Obsidian Order?
No.
Okay.
No. Again, it's redundant. So you have your secret police or whatever you want to call it, and let's just say CIA. So within the CIA, there's another group that has to make sure that they're not even checking on the CIA. They're outside of that. Again, it just seems redundant to me and unnecessary. To me, it would be better. What would be more interesting would be if Sloan took it upon himself to do all this stuff, having like a God complex kind of issue, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I'm not a fan of these.
Wow, you heard it here first. Sue gives this one a 9. It's her
yeah,
first
right.
9.
No.
So are we to believe that the story of Sloan starting Section 31 is that true, or was that all made up too?
Well, if we
Section
see
31.
if we see Section 31 in Discovery, that's before, so we know.
Well, because they're saying that Sloan is
in
avenging
Enterprise.
the death of Admiral Fujisaki or something like that. And they made that whole backstory about Sloan and Admiral Fujisaki. And so is that true or not?
I think that was there because they were working together. I understood that that was the cover story so that he could then get away and put the other guy in charge. I think that was my understanding of it. So I think it was all made up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because when you first watch it, when you first see that scene, you think, oh no, I thought Sloan was Section 31, and that's disappointing if it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But then later on, they confirmed that was just all a cover story.
Okay.
That was Wendell. Well, Carrie Schwent, how are you today? You do like this episode. You're a big Section 31 fan, I'm guessing. What'd you think?
Love-hate. Either love it or you hate it.
But the episode also kind of gives me a headache with all of the this is going on, and then this is going on, and then wait, this is going on too. Wait, it makes my brain hurt. And I love all the use of the Voyager sets. So my little lithograph here that I got back in Vegas in 06 really definitely applies. And even in the one when they're coming into what is like the captain's ready room on Voyager, you can, through the doorway, you can see the bridge. And I tried looking to see if I spotted anybody, and Cirroc, what was the food that you and Aaron got in trouble for eating so much of it from Voyager's craft services? Like way back, there was like hot wings or something, I think.
Chicken wings, yeah. Chicken wings.
Next time we talk to
Such a
Sadig,
great
you'll have to
story.
ask him if he had any of them and if they were still as good as when you and Aaron had yours.
Oh,
I
that's
thought
good.
about that. And I have a slight nitpick, so I've got little Grumpy Bear here all ready to go. So those, the hologram that in Julian's quarters when he was showing off how good he did his homework on the various things, the camera was a little bit close and you can see the holograms blinking, especially Koval. There was a lot of blinking. And a follow-up question, what was projecting those holograms? Because most quarters don't have holo projectors in them.
Maybe it was Section 31.
I thought about that too. But
I
I also
remembered a couple of times, I'm like, he is blinking a lot.
Yeah, no, I saw that
have
too.
to go back and watch it again.
I saw
especially
that.
Koval. The Koval
and I
hologram
thought
blinked a lot.
Yeah, but
And-
I was also explaining in a way like you're thinking that it has to be a hologram of a still person, and I'm thinking, why isn't it just a hologram of him like standing somewhere, and they just have a recording of him
Living
that
and
they're
breathing.
projecting? Yeah, so I
Follow video.
Okay, I can get behind that.
right. I kind of explained it away like that.
And poor Ezri getting the crap scared out of her when Julian comes bursting out of his quarters after Sloan. I felt so bad for her. She's like, Julian, what's wrong? Oh, damn, he's gone. Okay, sorry. And I also have my little my haiku. Yeah, there we go. That's the word I was looking for. Romulan Conference, Section 31 Intrigue, Kretak arrested. Yeah, poor Kretak. I mean, she was trying to help, but ends up being collateral damage.
Hey, that reminds me, guys.
I like her though.
I thought we had seen Kretak in previous episodes, but when we looked up the actress, it was a different actress. Can you guys clear that up? So it was the same character, but a different actress playing her?
They couldn't get her back, but they were able to get Adrienne Barbeau. I don't remember the name of the actress from the first one. It was the two-parter with Admiral Ross and Kira.
Butthead was Kira.
Yeah.
Kira
exactly. Yeah.
The Romulan with a jump stick.
See,
yeah, I read the name, but I
is
don't remember what it was.
Somebody who is not whack is Goldu Scott. He's got a Section 31 badge, by the way. Looking cool. Yeah.
Maybe it isn't. Who knows? I think that it was really nice that Ronald D. Moore wrote an episode specifically for me, because man, everything I could possibly want was packed into this. You got secret super spies, you got intrigue, you got lies that aren't lies that might be lies. You've got Romulans on top of all of it. You get to see Romulus, which I don't remember actually even seeing Romulus a whole lot in anything else. You see like the pan shots like over the countryside and whatnot in TNG a lot, but being on the ground, I thought it was really cool. Yeah, I love this, man. I love every last bit of this episode. I love the music that was playing at the conference. If you listen to it, there's Romulan classical music, lots of strings, very light. And I thought that was cool. That would be something that would represent them as a people, that kind of music, because I do feel we probably just see a lot of the bad side of Romulus. And then, Kretak shows up and she's pretty decent, and look what happens to her. So maybe they're just all getting a bad rap too. But yeah, like Anil said, I completely agree. That last scene was so great, where Bashir is laying in his bed and he's waxing philosophical. And then, Sloan pretty much just leans forward and just says, how do you think you have the opportunity to talk like this and think this way? Because there's always been somebody that's been cracking the eggs, and the omelet's been getting made since the beginning of the Federation. And there's always been somebody in the background that's been willing to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, love. I think 8.5 wasn't good enough, or that's what I guessed. But 8.5 isn't good enough either.
That's a good point. Mohamed,
I got a nitpick too.
Here it comes.
I'll use my Romulan. How about that? I'll use him. Dude, there was that one scene with Garrick in the Repomat.
That guy looks like Mark.
No, it does look like him. I think that was the only cast they probably had back then.
Almost looks like when Picard did it that one time in that one episode. Almost looks like how he was dressed up.
Oh yeah.
I just got him the other day. It's like $8, so I was super happy. There's one scene in the Repomat where Garrick is talking to Bashir, and Andy Robinson is so good, and he's talking with his hands, and they put no makeup on. His hands were so incredibly Caucasian. It was crazy. and there was a couple scenes where he was like that, and it was in front of, his regular grayscale makeup, and it caught me pretty hard this time. I don't know. Maybe it's just usually because he's so captivating with everything he's saying, you don't notice his hands flying around, but boy, they were human hands on a Cardassian in that scene. It was pretty.
Didn't even notice that. Maybe it was just right after lunch or something.
Yeah, he just had Cheeto hands. That's what it was.
He just went to the resting room. Oh, that's cool. I got to check that out. Good catch.
He's using a new cream. Yeah, we talked about it.
I remade it. He just made
it.
It's a lightning cream. Yeah. Michael Jackson brand. It's crazy.
Michael Jackson brand. Dr. Mohamed Noor, your thoughts on this episode, and how's North Carolina today, by the way?
Oh, weather's actually fantastic today, speaking of that. But I thought you were going to transition by saying, speaking of not completely Caucasian or something like that. That's what I thought you were going to say. I enjoyed the episode. Yeah, I enjoyed this episode a lot, actually. I thought the performances were great. One of my favorite quotes, I have it written down here. This is from Sloan. Let's make a deal, Doctor. I'll spare you the ends justify the means speech. And you spare me the we must do the right thing speech. You and I are not going to see eye to eye on this subject, so I suggest we stop discussing it.
Awesome.
That was that was beautiful. That was like spot on. Like, okay, move on. So
yeah,
I really enjoyed that. The one thing which struck me, this is something that's so much of Trek, and maybe this is my science angle to it. There's always some neurological disease. Like there's so many neurological diseases in the future that are out there. They're always neurological, no less, too. So that was interesting. I was trying to figure out the basis on which like you could have this disease and it could be triggered by this kind of radiation. It's not crazy, but it was just interesting that they always seem to fall back to that neurological disease mantra. So.
Yeah.
It works on people like me. I'm neurological. Okay, that sounds right.
Sounds good. I mean, it's really like a bone disease. I mean, there's all sorts of other things you could have go wrong, but it's always neurological.
Well, those are the areas that we haven't improved on in the future: mental health and neurological diseases. Those are the sciences that still need development.
And they're connected for sure. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that connection. Brilliant, Cirroc.
I got a question about that too. Was that the same disorder that eventually took Sarek?
His was Aromatic syndrome, wasn't it? I think that's what it was.
No,
that's Picard's thing.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, that was
Cirroc. No, that's what Picard has is Aromatic syndrome. Yeah, what is the one that Sarek has?
He had to mind meld with Picard right before he passed. And
Bendii syndrome, Bendii.
Bendii.
Wikipedia. Bendii. Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, is it Bendii? Okay.
I think that's what they called it. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. All right. We have somebody that has been just waiting to jump in and drop knowledge bombs on us. And it's Grandpa One here. He's just like, you guys are talking about all these secret societies and military stuff. I got all the answers, and here they come.
I think it's based on I think Sue said they are identical or redundant, and you're talking about Section 31 and Starfleet intelligence. Yes, they are identical mission. The big difference is Starfleet intelligence follows the rules and has a chain of command. Section 31, no rules. They'd only probably at one point they reported to somebody high up, but eventually that evolved and they're their own little. So so that was a big difference. I really did enjoy the episode. The first one or two times I watched it, I had to keep rewatching it because it's one you have to really pay attention to, especially when all of a sudden the last 15 minutes where everything falls into place. But just like Scott said, I like the intrigue, the amorality that like the Admiral showed. He's going like, and I think that was almost the highest confirmation of Section 31 is when he admitted or didn't deny it. I can't remember, but he agreed to work with them, and so. He's like, yeah, it's not perfect, and unfortunately we sacrificed the one senator, but that's war. That's the title of the episode.
Yeah, that's right. What's that in your background, by the way? Is that Switzerland or something?
Yeah, that was actually, I took that out in my hotel room. That was about 6 years ago. That's the Jungfrau, the tallest mountain in Switzerland behind me. But I opened up the door of this hotel and I'm like, oh, I think I'm just going to sit on this balcony the whole week I'm here because it was just a beautiful.
That no rules agency versus rules agency, there has to be some level of communication there so that. Right? There has to be something. Otherwise, how if I see you, the no rule guys, while I'm here with my rules.
Yeah.
And you're running amok, and I don't have. Yeah, there has to be some commit. Like the guys that don't follow the rules are going to be over there. It has to be something.
Like I mentioned, that probably was. It's not unrealistic to think that this was formed when Starfleet was formed, and at that point, let's say they reported to Commander-in-Chief of Starfleet, but 100 years goes by, and eventually you could think of them as a rogue team. So maybe that's the way I'm justifying the whole. Maybe at one point they reported to somebody. They don't anymore.
That's the way it's described.
But they have to have mission objectives that are. designated to them.
Maybe, but not necessarily, because like look at it like this way, right? Let's say the 7th rule wants to be podcast domination, right? And we're going out and we're doing everything we can, right? Now, secretly, we're not supposed to know this, but we are aware that Sue, being the deviant that she is, and Scott and Carrie and Mai, they have like this 4-person team where they're openly sabotaging the other podcasts to bring them down to help us become like the only viable podcast solution out there for people that want podcasts. And we didn't necessarily start them, but you know, if they want to do what they got to do, we can't stop them, right?
I think it's probably the case, isn't it? Because and obviously Starfleet Command knew about it, was at least a few of them would know about it, and it would be something akin to. I mean, if you think back to, say, the World Wars or whatever, you would have had all of these awful things, all these decisions being made, but they would have only been done by a handful of need-to-know people, wouldn't they? So I think it is realistic in the sense that not many people would know about it, even within government itself, but you would have a select few who would know about it. And that's why I think it then does work, because it's just filtered through that way. And you had Admiral Ross as somebody who was a bit of nobody, he was hiding. He was almost like a double agent in that respect for the purpose of the mission itself.
Literally a double agent.
But he wasn't working for. It was a means to an end, because it's similarly to the decision Sisko took. He did it. Mm-hmm. He justified doing it because he was sick of all of the death and destruction that was happening so far. So there were lots of parallels there to what's happened previously with decisions that governments have made. I'm sure things like this happen all of the time. We just don't know about it. Maybe that's just me being cynical, but I'm sure that's the case.
But I think you also have the issue that maybe they're so entrenched now, you don't know if your coworker is part of Section 31. So that helps sustain them because of the fear that it could be anybody. So
my read on it real quick was that Captain Sisko knew a lot more than he let on, because he was the one who told Bashir, you should play along. And there's no way. I mean, he's not running the war, but he's like one of the top, commanders in the war. There's no way that he's not connected, that he would be so out of the loop. So
Cirroc was bringing up the same thing,
and the way he played it, I feel like there was kind of like a sort of a wink and nod to the camera. I felt like, to me.
Yeah, when he said "good hunting," I thought that was a really strange way that he delivered that, and that would actually align with that kind of analysis.
Like he's like, "Go, good hunting, Tiger. Go get him. Good luck out there." We do have it on good authority. We're not supposed to know this, but we do know that the communications officer for the 7th Rule, Section 31, that's headed by Sue, the officer is Mai, live from Tokyo. So you don't have to divulge too much information, Mai, but what did you think of this episode in particular?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I loved it the first time I saw it, and then I liked it because I knew what was going to happen going forward. But a couple of things that struck me this time, after reading the Picard books, I can't see the Romulans as evil. I just pity them now. It's tough, you know. That just destroyed my feeling of them as being evil. So that was one thing on that. And the other one, in this episode, to me more than any other, I thought Julian channeled his uncle big time in his delivery of every single line. It was just ridiculous. It was very Malcolm McDowell, I thought, all the way through. And I love that because I love Malcolm McDowell as an actor. I didn't have a lot of time to go through it, so just a few small points. One, the Bellerophon is the name of the ship that took Julian to the conference, which is interesting because 2 episodes ago, when we were talking about Chimera, Bellerophon was actually the warrior from Greek history that defeated the Chimera. So a connection to episode 14 or Bashir's own Chimera of escaping Section 31 service. I don't know, but I thought it was kind of cool, kind of geeky, fun, whatever. Then my high school years came back and grabbed me because I had to study Latin a lot in high school. And when Admiral Ross says inter arma enim silent legis, I was like, no. It's not enim. That's a diphthong. That's AI. You can't do that. It's enim. It's a short E. And then when Julian says in time of war, the laws fall silent, that it makes the sealant, it makes it an active verb, and it's not. It's just a description of a state of being, I think. So I thought a much better historically accurate quotation a translation of that in history is by Henry David Thoreau in Civil Disobedience, when he talks about the clatter of arms drowns out the voice of law. It's describing a state of being, and I think that I like that one a lot better. But I love the fact that they use Latin as much as they do. Yet again, I found Latin in Star Trek, and so yay for that. That's all I got for today. I was up late last night and up early this morning, so.
Oh, that's all? You just totally broke my brain, dude. That was great stuff, Mike.
Yeah.
Anybody else know any Latin? I don't. Okay.
Lumos.
Mine's our scholar.
Knox. I have my phone programmed with Harry Potter spells. They're all Latin. I can see Ryan's really impressed with that.
Number one Harry Potter fan right here. And by number one, I mean...
Hey, you know, I did like also, this is out of left field, but I like these Koval when he said, just like most expressions, devoid of meaning. I love that. He was so cold when he delivered that one. That was pretty good.
There were some great lines in this episode. There's no doubt about that.
Speaking of great lines, we have somebody wearing a ton of great lines on her shirt. Her name is Tierney C. Diekman, and she's ready to drop some knowledge on us too.
Maybe, who knows? This episode, I've always enjoyed this one. Love a good mystery, but I've partially come to love it because it's kind of a mess. The longer you look at it, the worse it gets. It's one of those things. As great as it is, I think it deserves a high rating for just the tonal aspects of it and how deep you can dig into it. I mean, Ross is in a really crappy position, and it's remarked on any information you can find on IMDb and Memory Alpha, and I know it's touched on in some of the books. Kretek is imprisoned, but I don't know how canon it is. She's not released. I think she escapes with the help of someone. So hopefully a little bit of, levity in her life later on, because she got screwed. Poor Kretek. Oh my God. Like, you just feel bad for her through everything towards the end of this episode.
Collateral damage?
Yeah, horrendously. It's awful. But regardless, I would have liked a little bit more on what Ross was going through. But overall, everyone but Section 31 is being duped here in one way or another. Everyone's a little in the dark, including, and I thought the same thing, Sisko knows something. There's no way. He's too close with Ross. He has to know that there's going to be danger to Julian going into this, to allow him to go to this conference beforehand. So everybody's got their own level of secrecy. But after really, I think I had more fun trying to fill in my own nitpicks and plot holes that I probably, created plot holes from all my nitpicking for myself than anything. The thing that really has kind of bothered me the most is Sloane's behavior at the conference, and then the ending tribunal and how that goes, and him being beamed out, and Ross's the information he has on that. And I mean, for one, Romulans use disruptors. They don't use phasers. Disruptors will friggin' disintegrate you. And a beam out, even in special Section 31 technology, is going to take a little bit. I'm thinking, all right, is it a holo projection, the tribunal? Because Kretek doesn't actually go to anybody first with the information she has from Bashir. I'm going back and forth, but no, it couldn't be, because they want somebody on their side with Koval that is still giving them the information, etc. I won't go into that line. It's too convoluted. But
Carrie and Eve loved your disruptor nitpick, by the way.
I don't have my nitpick totem with me this week. I'll have to get one. But my thought, though, overall, especially because chances are, unless it was really choreographed with Koval as well, they used a mind probe on Sloan too. And I'm thinking it's not Sloan that's at that conference. Maybe not clone Sloan, but surgically altered. They could have had multiple, because the way that he's on the Bellerophon at the conference, gets off, out, whatever, it's a little too much and a little too brazen for someone like Sloan and something like Section 31. It doesn't make sense. And he gets hit with that disruptor blast. Whomever that is gone. I don't care. And those things in his head could be real or implanted memories. That could be the person that Koval has been reporting to, thinking that is Sloan, for all we know. We don't even know, other than from what Ross says, well, I don't know how long he's been working for Section 31, if Koval thinks he's been reporting to a special section of Starfleet that they don't know about, or if he's just been reporting to Starfleet intelligence. This whole thing could have been planned to push the thought aside, the whole conspiracy of a potential secret police within Starfleet, like the Tal Shiar or the Federation, as here's this crazy freaking guy who used to be Starfleet intelligence, who has a grudge against Koval because of his former captain, whatever, Fujisaki or Fujimara, whatever. And this guy just, it's a thing in his mind of what we'd consider somebody touting about the deep state and, something like that. So there are so many levels that this could have gone, that I think it just sort of fell flat within the writing, because they got the idea in their head after originally it was going to be Bashir does dupe Sloan and reveals him. And then they thought, no, we're going to triple this. And that's awesome. It is mentioned like it's a John le Carre novel inspired by, in a way, but it's just not tight enough. It's another two-parter would have been great, but I think that would have bored audiences too much, too slow. But it's another really good one for pushing Section 31. And I'm sorry to the others that disagree, why, it's very realistic that it exists, and why in their eyes it's necessary. Because this isn't, like Anil said, they have the utopia. Why would they need something like that? Earth has a utopia. There are some aspects of the Federation within Starfleet because of that have their own better planets and their own utopia that they, of course, want to protect as well. But the Federation doesn't have their utopia. They're still fighting against the Dominion. They're still fighting for everything else, and they still are worried about the Romulans. Because look at Kretak, look at some of the others, and what Mai said, you pity them. They're not just their own little Senate and the people on the Senate that want nothing to do with the Federation. They're an entire race, a huge race of people that, as we know further on in canon, go through hell. Like, they're not just these groupings of awful people. So we, as Section 31 would be, worried, and they're going to keep fighting for that utopia. Like I mentioned in Pale Moonlight, it's like after the Red Scare, they just lost everything. They want to keep fighting for it after, they had World War III. That's probably when it was about established, Section 31, which probably evolved and then devolved and then re-evolved again from CIA, FBI, anything intelligence, into this conglomerate of, we will do whatever it takes. And that means we need to be completely autonomous, and we'll need to have a few people here and there that can get us what we need and secret us away when we need. And they're going to have to be within the actual recognized parts of the government and intelligence. And we're just going to be a whisper, but they're real and they're necessary. They suck, but and another thing I thought at the end of this is that little speech between him and Bashir, between Sloan and Bashir, is they could have also called this episode something along the lines of God Save the Little Children, because as awful as it is, you need people like that sometimes, and it makes you sick to your stomach. But on this scale, on a galactic scale, you need it for people like Bashir with a moral compass, a strong moral compass to keep going. So yeah. Oh, one thing unrelated to deep in the episode. This is apparently either one of the last or close to the last are walking around the station getting, breakfast, one-on-one encounters between Garrick and Bashir. Apparently, the studio had said they wanted to dial back all of those encounters because Andy Robinson, according to them, had been putting too many homosexual inflections and overtones and undertones into those interactions, which, if anything's going to make you sick to your stomach, the studio on that one, are you kidding? Like, I saw that information and and then it made me think back of, you haven't seen them together for a while. And then you really only see them like on the ships together, and you miss that whole relationship that they had, that fun togetherness, and another huge part of what made Garrick's character so great. And it's like this, I know it's a part of the era and the time, and you wouldn't see that now, but it really pissed me off. Like, come on, guys. Overtones or not, like, really? But anyway, moving on. Yep.
Yeah, when we saw Garrick pop up, it felt like we hadn't seen him in a while with Bashir. I definitely noticed that as well. It was a welcome return to their little banter days. Speaking of a welcome return, Erika Stroem is here. How are you, Erika? Thanks for coming back to playing with us. It's super late for you out in the UK. Thanks for staying up. What do you think of this episode? Uh-oh, we can't hear you. If you were muted, we missed all of your laughter and giggles throughout all of our jokes. Wait.
Great jokes.
No, we can't hear you. Last. Well, try pushing some buttons. While you're doing that, we'll get Cirroc's final take and see what happens. Any final thoughts, Cirroc?
Yeah, a little bit. There's a few thoughts that came across my mind when I was listening to everybody talk, but for obvious reasons, it's disturbing when you kind of find out the extent at which governments go to protect its own existence, essentially. And that's disheartening when you find out, that this level of stuff is happening. Nobody wants to be signed on to it, as far as, that's the whole point of Starfleet, kind of not acting like it doesn't exist, because it's not something you can proudly, raise your hand and say, yes, I'm a part of that thing right there. It's something that it's kind of a dirty thing that you want to bury in the back of the closet and don't really acknowledge. But unfortunately, it's part of the reality of the world. And it goes back, who knows how far. I think that's one of the reasons why I felt like the acknowledgement of the Merchant of Venice and Shakespeare, and also to the senators of the Roman Empire and the Latin, speaking of Latin, I think all of those things were trying to talk about how old the idea of no rules in war. And so I think that was one of the things that Ronald Moore captured well in this episode. The other thing I think is interesting is as a concept is I remember at the very end when Admiral Ross is trying to justify everything that had happened, and Bashir says to him, like, that senator was a good person, like she was a good person. She was trying to find the killer. She was trying to help us. She wants a better future for the Romulans. And his argument is, well, that's the problem. She's a patriot. She loves her country.
Yeah.
And she'll put her country in front of ours. And it's kind of weird to think that, your love of your own country has to include somebody else not loving theirs. And that's kind of a weird thing to me when I walked away from that idea. Mm-hmm. Like, well, shouldn't she want to see the best for the Romulans? And doesn't that make sense for anybody coming from any planet or anywhere? Wouldn't they want to see their country do well and be prosperous and have a good future for them? And I think that it's kind of misplaced to judge somebody, to fault them for having that love of their own origin.
Yeah. But at the same time, that's the key to intelligence, is knowing what your enemy or what your ally is thinking or where their motivations lie. And the fact that they know, they're like, okay, well, we know she's going to do what's best for Romulus. So now we can base our projections of how she's going to react to things on that, right?
Yeah, well, then it means that somebody's going to be put in place that's not going to do the best for Romulus and who's going to do the best for the Federation, which means it's a colony, therefore, and not a independent, free-thinking place. It's now been assimilated, just like the Borg, essentially. So what's the difference? And so when you start thinking of it in those terms, everybody who's on the winning side thinks they're right, or everybody thinks they're right. Everybody thinks their perspective is the right one. But when you have a big monolithic thing like the Federation that has that much power, their abuse of the power could be detrimental to entire civilizations. So it's important to be a good steward of your power. And that's, I guess, ultimately, those are the decisions that are made at these higher levels about what is good and what is not, and who's the better, the greater good that comes out of things. But it's hard because that puts the morality and the judgment of morality into a select few people's hands, as opposed to the public or the general consensus, in which if we look at any kind of a democratic way, that the majority rules and the public gets to decide morally what's right or wrong. But in this way, it's done in a few people's hands who have to just make those decisions for everybody else.
That was my favorite soldier, general morality. So did it work out for you, Erika? Can we hear you now? Oh,
don't know.
Yes. All right. You did it, you guys.
Oh, I must press the right button.
So what do you think of this episode?
Right, I'm possibly on Team Sue with this because I'm not a big fan of Section 31 either. I don't like the violence. And the thing that baffles me, I mean, when they get injured, they repair them so easily, but it often makes you wonder what still goes through their mind, because they don't repair that very well.
Yeah.
So, I can't remember ever seeing this episode before, and I have gone through I don't know how many runs of DS9, but still cannot remember that one. I remember seeing Sloane before, but not that particular episode. So, yeah, I'm afraid it's a take or leave one for me.
Sorry, we can't hear you, Erika. I don't know what. No.
We can hear you.
Sue and Erika take on the world. Here we go. Well, that's good stuff. So you either have seen it and then just kind of forgot about it, or this was the first time seeing it.
Oh, probably I just kept thinking, no, I don't like that one. I'll just go past it.
Skip it. All right.
I have done that with episodes.
Well, that's good stuff. We do have to run, everybody. Do want to say thank you to Radek, Anil, Sue, Carrie, Scott, Mohamed, Grandpa, one, Eve, Mai, Tierney, and Erika for Cirroc, myself, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg, Melissa Longo, who's probably in the sky somewhere flying back to Los Angeles. We'd like to thank you all. Oh, you saw her, Mohamed.
Yeah, there she is.
Thank you all very much. We will see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.